Hello, everybody. I was looking for a wallpaper, anything to do with changelings or fae for World of Darkness, and all I was getting was World of Warcraft stuff, so welcome to whatever this background is. In order to understand Kiasyd, we're gonna first need to start from Marconius, which is this disembodied head right over here, just like slapped on a random flyy creature's body from World of Warcraft. Don't mind that. So, Marconius was a mage, and then he was a La Sombra. That's another clan of Vampire the Masquerade that I have already covered previously before. He may or may not have had a sister. He probably did, in some shape or form, who was also a mage. Probably. Because there are two stories for how Kiasyd came into being, and both of them go almost identically. So, in one version of the story, Marconius becomes a La Sombra and starts experimenting with their shadowy obtenebration abilities. He and his sister manage to open a portal into the abyss. They go there and some combination of stuff happens between Marconius eating a whole bunch of things that he was never supposed to eat, getting affected by glamour, and drinking his sister to death. The other option is that Marconius had two accomplices that were likely the driving factors of the whole operation, and he wanted to learn more about obtenebration, which is the La Sombra's ability to use shadowy magic. Through some illicit deals, they bought a dodgy potion of a mage that was known as the blood of Zernebuch, which is supposedly the god of underworld, and supposedly through no you drink it, Marconius ends up being the one that drinks that, and as a result he undergoes a very strict physical transformation, which stops him from being a La Sombra. Quite specifically, he grows at least 2 feet in height. His features become a bit more fae-like. His eyes go completely black with no white in it whatsoever. His skin goes very white, and it glows at moonlight or whenever he's feeding. In general, Kiasyd's appearance features make them glow either white or blue. Those are like the two typical things. All of them grow at least 2 feet in height, putting them at 7 feet or over most of the time. So they're this big, long, alien-y looking sort of fellas because they have like very elongated features. They're normally either white or blue. Their eyes tend to be completely black. Very, alien. All of this has happened in the year about 360, between 360 and 363. Now, when the rest of the La Sombra found out, they weren't very happy. They didn't quite blame Marconius for being the one that got to drink a dodgy potion, but they were like, dudes, you were dealing with a mage, which you were not supposed to do. You didn't even get this mage's name, so like, what the fuck? You probably offended some fae, considering that dude now looks like he's part fae, which probably means that the blood was not of an underworld god. The blood was probably somewhat of fae origin, so like, that's really not okay. And that dude now looks nothing like a La Sombra, so we should probably put him down. But La Sombra's third generation, like, progenitor stepped in, so instead of getting put down, Marconius just gets left in prison for like around over 1,000 years. Like, the next time he becomes free at about the Anarch Revolution, so about 1400s, compared to, getting imprisoned in about 360s. Apparently that did affect his mind quite a lot, because his brood, like his children, referred to him as being in this kind of madness state that a Fae gets into if they stay in the Fae world for too long, and the real world becomes really alien to them. Mostly it's like a state that changelings get, or people mixed with Fae blood, because, well, they kind of get to live in both worlds. So, like, if you stay in the Fae world for too long and you come back, the real world doesn't quite make any more sense anymore, and you feel very alien. So they enter this fugue madness state. So this dude effectively is very eccentric, doesn't know how to act, and is described as being quite mad, which, after being kept in prison for over 1,000 years, who can blame him? But from here on end, after he was freed, he decided to take over Strasbourg for himself, drive out all of the Ventru out of the place, and just hold Strasbourg for himself as his domain after the whole Sabbat thing happens, because they're the ones that freed him during the revolt. They were like, well, all of your children can just like stay with you over there, or you guys can like disperse. So they were like, nah, we're staying in here. For the most part, that's pretty cool. Some of them like went traveling on their own, but most of them stayed. And because they were so eccentric and weird, the Sabbat didn't quite know what to do with them, so they were like, don't go there, and don't like interact with those vampires. They're kind of weird. And La Sombra was like, that is miles away from all of the strongholds that we care about. The only people that he annoyed was Ventru, so like, just like stay away from that location. He's a bit weird. At one point, like recently, in pretty recent like modern nights, Merconius has decided to abandon the Sabbat and ally himself with the Camarilla, and the judgment was still pretty much the same. Like, leave that dude completely alone. We're only like marginally related. Just like, don't pay attention to him being there, and it's fine. So like, nobody even like objected. The kind of things that he does, everybody just lets it slip because they're like, it's a weird dude in the middle of nowhere. Why would we care? They're weird. Something's off with them. Just like, leave them entirely alone. And that has been greatly the judgment of Kiasyd from other vampires towards Kiasyd. They be weird. Leave them alone. Now, Kiasyd did have this bit of a problem with the rest of Fae/vampire cross-population, because yeah, that exists, and I'm gonna elaborate on them in the next video, where when Merconius comes into the scene and he gets freed, he claims the word Kiasyd for himself. He says that only me and my brood are the only legitimate Kiasyd, and his claim sorta makes sense, considering that he is the only one that when he embraces another vampire, his blood carries over and like transforms them into this half-fae creature. Normally, half-fae, half-vampire hybrids, if they make anyone else into a vampire that's not a fae, like if they make a regular human into a vampire, they only pass down the vampire qualities, they don't pass down the fae qualities. So something is really wrong with Merconius, but then again, the dude either drank the blood of a necromancy god, or whatever he drank in the weird potion, or he went to the abyss, ate a whole bunch of things he wasn't supposed to, was affected by magic, and ate his magical sister. So whatever has happened to him has crossed quite a few wires, to a point where those wires can remain crossed, and this can be passed down as a curse to somebody else in its full capacity. So he comes in and he goes, "We are the only rightful Kiasyd, and other Fey vampire hybrids, let's call them like that," just goes, "Yep, we're leaving. It's fine." Like, they literally just, like, let go of their holdings and let go of the name and let go of any history that they had with the name Kiasyd, and they renamed themselves to Miegar, and they left. So he gets to hold that name, which was quite a dick move, just like kicking out other vampire fae hybrids. But with a lot of things in this dude's life, a lot of reaction that he gets from other people is mostly, leave that dude alone. For some really odd, bizarre reason, maybe it's just the kind of vibe that he gives off to other people, but everything that should be a conflict, just the other side just goes, "Yep, whatever, don't want to get involved in this, I'm leaving," and they just kind of walk away. So now, what is Kiasyd? What is unique about Kiasyd? How do they differ from other vampires? What is it in their culture, and what is it that they normally do? Well, appearance-wise, giant, tall-looking, alien-looking people that range between being very pale and sort of blue in skin color are very tall, normally over 7 foot tall, which makes them very, very long. They normally have black eyes. They have a fierce aversion to cold iron, I believe it was, like a fae would, because, you know, that's entirely normal. They have an inherent understanding of fae tricks. They have access to Mythocercia, which is a discipline that gives them the ability to modify reality in a ways that is not unlike the Fae. The rest of their disciplines, by the way, is either Dominate, which is the control of the mind, or Necromancy, which is, you know, dealing with the dead, depending on the edition that you're playing, and Obtenebration, which is the Sombra's ability to control shadow tentacles. So what is I'm not gonna pronounce this right. Mythocercia. By the way, this is also shared with Miegar, so other Fae vampire hybrids also have this. Mythocercia gives you these kind of powers. For standard powers, Fae Sight, Sense Changelings, and Fae Glamours, or Folderol determine whether a statement was a lie. Now, mind you, this is not a pick your own adventure sort of thing. This depends on the edition that you're playing. For level 2, you have Darkling Trickery, create all sorts of effects that are normally associated with fairies. Fae Sight, Sense Changelings and Fae Glamours, or Fae Sight, from a different version, sense any form of magic unrelated to ghosts and undead. At level 3, you get Goblinism. Goblinism is the name of all time. Intuitive Direction Sense Underground, that allows you to also summon goblins to help warp and reshape stone. Or Aura Absorption, which is removing the resonance from an object. At level 4, you get Changeling Ward, place symbols that confuse and disorient people. Level 5, you have Riddle Fantastique, speak riddles that make people do nothing but sit and ponder it. Advanced powers, which very few would have access to because you need to be quite a low generation in order to get that access to advanced powers. Normally the kind of generation that players wouldn't have access to. At level 6, you have stone travel. The vampire can tunnel underground or steal the mind, remove memories and knowledge from a victim temporarily. At level 7, you have Earth Sword, cause spikes to shoot at a target from any large structure or absorb the mind, permanently take ability ranks from a victim to yourself. Now, mind you, Marconius would have access to this. If his sheet ain't OP, the guy was living entirely wrong. And at level 8, there's Basilisk's Touch, which is turn a victim into stone at touch, or the grandest trick, become immortal for up to 1 day. Marconius would also have access to this, and he would be the only one with the low enough generation to have access to this ability, and the guy is absolutely batshit bonkers mad. So, wonder if he even uses that one. Like, it's literally just some part La Sombra dude living in his own castle being batshit bonkers mad when everybody reacts to him with just leave that dude alone. Anyway, in order to become a Kiasyd, you kind of need to have an educated background. Kiasyds will take museum curators, professors, people that did research into old and unusual writings and stories. Most people that they would take would come from polite society and would probably have about university's level of education, if not higher. It is academics, people that lean into sciences and that sort of thing. Kiasyds normally have fascination with old folk tales, like everything pertaining to Fae. They also have a bit of a fascination with alchemy and mixing blood into different kind of potions. They kind of stay away from all the other vampires and each other. Something about company that doesn't quite jibe well with them. So even if they take a new vampire, a childer, that's how it's normally called in Vampire the Masquerade, if they embrace a person to be like them, they will stay around to teach them and to teach the proper ways of a Kiasyd for up to 50 years, but in modern times that has been less and less and less time, and then they will just tell you, please fuck off. Because they don't do very well with company. Like, they don't make associates with other people, and they don't even want to stay around each other. They tend to be incredibly polite, and they speak as if you entered a room of middle-aged professors having a conversation between one another, and indeed it is not that uncommon for Kiasyd to come together like a few times every 100 years to just share their findings, be very polite to one another, and then go their separate ways. Once again. Because they don't like hanging out around each other. So they will each have their own like fascination with things, and they will want to learn all they can, especially when it comes to things like mythology and blood potions. But they don't really want to stick around anyone else or each other. And that fascination with mixing blood has also kind of turned into cocktail clubs, where effectively they're like, hey, what if we take a bit of Fae blood and we mix it with like vampire blood? What if we try some werewolf blood? That sort of thing. So they make various cocktails, which vary in taste and in things that they do, because people have noticed that they do actually have their own side effects that can range from getting temporary abilities to feeling like invisible people are haunting you, or like your surroundings are not quite right. So, drink one of those at your own risk. Meanwhile, the Kiasyd will be very happy to be conducting their own like blood experiments and consuming them like there's no tomorrow. They're perfectly fine with all of that, but then again, they're partly related to Fae, so it probably doesn't wholly unsettle them. Like, they're probably used to some pretty weird shit on the regular, and that just comes with, well, being a Kiasyd. So, that would be what the Kiasyd would be. And in case you're wondering about those guys, they're nobody important. They're just art that World of Darkness developers have provided about what a Kiasyd ordinarily looks like. So the lady is probably tall enough to give you death by snoo snoo if you really wanted to. And the black and white guy looks like a proper alien, so that like gives you a nice outline for how a Kiasyd is. And then we have the center eccentric, who everybody just decided, you know what, just let's leave that guy alone. That would be the wisest thing to do. I do really like these guys. I think that they're very unique. They would be a bloodline that would be very, very hard to play. Not because everybody hates them, everybody just sort of leaves them alone, but they don't quite enjoy company outside of their own company. They like being an entire loner, so I suppose they would be usable for a one-shot if you were like, my guy is a Kiasyd, he comes in and he has this like seeking of a specific book or some sort of knowledge, or he's like chasing a myth, or he wants a sample of like a supernatural creature's blood, like one specific supernatural creature in particular. And you could like throw him into a situation and he would like cooperate with some other vampires that are in the party, and you could probably have a grand old time. But playing an actual campaign with one would be very, very difficult because of that loner trait. Like, there isn't much reason why they would want to stick around others, even Kiasyds. Like, they don't stick around each other. They don't stick around other vampires. They don't stick around other supernatural in general. They just don't form these bonds. These are like, imagine them as like super isolationists, introverted people that are very obsessed with whatever it is that they're researching or looking for, and they like to collect knowledge, and they don't mind getting together once in a while to share that knowledge, and they're very polite to one another, but being around others gets on their nerves. They need quiet. They need freedom to just do what it is that they do, and they don't want company whatsoever. Which means that if you want to play like a proper campaign, putting a dude like this in would actually be pretty difficult. So I do appreciate the bloodline. I love how unique it is, but they would be hard to use in a regular game. Probably even harder than like a regular Fae and vampire hybrid. I'm pretty sure that these guys are even more isolationist than those guys. So that's like saying something. So what do you think about Kiasyd? Have you ever played one? Would you ever consider playing one? I think that they're a very good idea. I wouldn't know how would you incorporate one. And you would definitely not even like put one as an enemy. Maybe you could like put one as a quest giver. Like, this guy sends you on a mission to retrieve this mysterious Fae artifact, and their Kiasyd, you know? Or this like passing NPC is passing through your town, or there's that guy that lives at the edge of that town, but like nobody bothers him, so like don't bother him either because that's just not a good idea. Leave him the heck alone. Like you could incorporate them as an NPC like that, but how do you use this on the regular? The answer is probably that you don't, which is like quite the fascinating thing and quite the problem with a lot of edge cases that you run into Vampire the Masquerade. So on one hand, I love the diversity of thought and the diversity of just pure sheer creativity that they have invested in this game, but a lot of it outside of like the main clans, it becomes like borderline unplayable or really hard to incorporate or use in the regular game. So if you have ever used Kiasyd in the regular game or can figure out a way to do so, please tell me. I would love to read it in the comment section down below. Before we end this, if you were wondering what the symbol is, that is the symbol of a Kiasyd, and when we're gonna be talking about Miagar in the next episode, their symbol is quite similar, honestly. This one is a butterfly, which is more like a Fey aspect with the symbol of the skull on it, which represents them having the necromancy abilities in like the second edition, which they no longer do. It got replaced with Dominate in V20, and they were never ported to V5, if you were wondering. So that symbol like represents how they kind of came to be, and Miagar's symbol is effectively this but bit modified. You're gonna see it in the next episode. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope I'm gonna see you the next time in my other Vampire the Masquerade videos. Thank you so much for my Patreon supporters for letting me make videos like this, and toodaloo for now.